37. Is that right? Huh? Kevin? How many? How many that altogether? Okay, so 37 factors of enlightenment. Okay, so in that 37 enlightenment of this factors of enlightenment, start off with the Satipatthana, Samapadana, Itipada, and then Isi and Bala, and then Bojanga, and this Eightfold Noble Path, and the rest we discussed, but we didn't focus on last two, the 7 and 8, which is the Bojanga and Eightfold Noble Path, which I thought that will continue next year. But the rest of others we discussed and practiced on each and every aspects of these 44455. So today I thought I will just give you an overview of this Eightfold Noble Path. And this Eightfold Noble Path is also known as the middle path. So having said that middle path, it straight away indicates that Buddha's teachings is actually based on the Eightfold Noble Path. Before his enlightenment, we know that there were two different types of beliefs or views that will lead to the ultimate happiness or the liberation. The first view, extreme, which is later on known as the extremes. Two extremes. You remember what are the two extremes? Huh?
One is that given all the pain to the body, I don't know what it's called, but just try to get all of the pain and
torturing
yeah.
Sensual pleasures, right? So called Kama Sukhalikana Yoga and Atta Kilamatana Yoga. Okay, so these were the two types of practices, and following this path, thought that it leads to the liberation. The first one is the Kama Sukhalikana Yoga, which is a practice to indulge our senses, and hoping that by indulging these senses, one can eventually liberate to attain the liberation. And there were at least two philosophers at that time, and one of the very famous one is called Charvak, who strongly believed and followed this that there is no afterlife and we don't need to worry about it, so just indulge yourself. And then the Buddha, he reflected on that, and then he realized that this is not the path, path to the ultimate liberation. And then later on, after he became a monk and wandering around, and after going around studying, later on he tortured himself in various ways, and in many different ways. There are a couple of discourses even explains that no one ever had practiced such an extreme ever compared to what he had done. And then following that practice, he also eventually realized that it almost took his life, and then he gave up. And after giving up that path, then he thought to release himself. So rather than a physical torture, he contemplated on mental calmness and mental balance. And with that, so he went on practicing meditation, and then on that very night, he realized this enlightenment. Now, in that enlightenment, if you look at the first discourse of the Buddha, the Vajjakappavattana Sutra, we see that he enlightened, understood the suffering and how it should be understood, and its a cause and the ending of it. And then these all Four Noble Truths, which later on formed it as a Four Noble Truth. That in that Four Noble Truth, the first one is the suffering, dukkha. Second one is the cause of the suffering. The third one is the ending of the suffering. So these three are whether the Buddha arises or enlightened or not. So these three were there, will be there, and it's a natural phenomena at all the time. And we are all conditioned by it, and we will be facing this suffering again and again. Now, on that night, the enlightenment that the Buddha attained, actually this path, it's called the Majjhima Patipada, or the middle path. So this middle path begins with the right understanding. This is the first part, right understanding. Once we have got the right understanding, the rest we don't need to worry at all. The rest will follow. But the problem that we are facing nowadays, or pretty much all the time, most of the time, that all the beings still have to wandering around in the samsara, simply because we haven't understood properly that what should be understood as they truly are. And that is the reason why we are wandering in the samsara. Now, whereas here, if we truly understand things as they truly are, the natural law it is, we have our own law, and then how we have created all the things that's happening. If we have understood it in its true reality, then rest, thinking becomes right, speaking becomes right. What else after that? Anyone? Remember? Action. And then?
Thought.
See, that is called a memory. Memory is not permanent. Right? But if we have experienced it through the practice, then it becomes just flows. It just flows. So, right understanding, because of having a right understanding, we will be thinking right. Thinking right. And then because of thinking right, we will be speaking right, doing right, living right. And then with that, our effort becomes right, and our mindfulness becomes right. And then we will be contemplating everything, in a right way. And these, again, now we have to remember, this is the path, not the end. It is a journey that we are walking on. It's not the end. Once we have walked on that properly, then that leads to the vijja. It's called samma vijja, which is the right knowledge, discern knowledge of things. And this discerning knowledge actually leads to the liberation. That's called the samma vimutti. So Eightfold Noble Path. So the Buddha also said that this is the path that we have to walk on in order to gain the right knowledge. And what is the right knowledge for? Right knowledge is to get the freedom, to attain the freedom. That's called samma vimutti. So as the entire Buddha's teachings is actually pointing at the path that we have to walk on. And it's up to us. It's up to us that whether we want to walk on this path or not. If we are walking on this path, we will be closer to the liberation. If It's like rather than going to the north, going to the south, or maybe getting a little bit of fun, going left and right for some entertainment, and then lost into the left or lost into the right, and then we could not reach to the north, like that. So that's why now in the Eightfold Noble Path, the difference is we talk about Sila, Samadhi, Panya, right? So the morality, concentration, and wisdom. And this Sila, Samadhi, Panya, this morality, observation of the 5 precepts or basic precepts, and then the concentration level, and then the wisdom level. That's more of how to live our life more productively, harmoniously, and peacefully. That's not to do the liberation yet. Whereas in the Eightfold Noble Path, the first 2 are the wisdom part. The first, and then the second 3 are the morality part, and then the last 3 are the part that's called the samadhi part, or the meditation part. And here, all these are actually leading towards the liberation. But all again relies on the first cabin. It's like a train. First cabin, once you have a first cabin properly looked after, the rest of the 7 will follow. You don't need to worry about the rest of the 7. It's one union. But if we look at only the last bit, then we miss the other cabins. So that's why the Eightfold Noble Path, it's called Fold Noble Path, not each and every one. So it has to be done together at the same time. Only then it becomes Eightfold Noble Path. So this Eightfold Noble Path is the path, and also is actually Buddhism. So entire Buddha's teachings, that's why it's not about what is the problem. It's about the Buddha's teachings is talking about how to deal with what's happening, the problems, what's happening now. So that is the different perspectives compared to what we normally think. Why this is what's happening? But the Buddha's teaching is saying how to deal with what's happening now, the problems, how to solve the problem is the key in Buddha's teachings. So that is the Eightfold Noble Path. Okay, I will end here before we practice loving kindness meditation.